runs the STEM Colloquium, and I am here today to introduce our speaker and workshop leader, John Suarez. But before I do that, I just want to take a moment to say a little something about our NOIS program. So the Barnard NOIS Teacher Scholars Program, our goal is to train 16 highly qualified STEM teachers for urban public schools. And so we've already trained 2, and so we have 12 more to produce over the next 3 years, and we're very excited to have this opportunity to use this part of the program to kind of build an awareness of STEM educational issues here on our campus at Barnard. So, a little bit about John Suarez. John Suarez is the Service Learning Coordinator at the State University of New York at Cortland. John and other current faculty at SUNY Cortland require students to use evolving technologies such as service learning, an approach to teaching and learning that integrates meaningful community service with instruction and reflection to enrich the learning experience, teach civic responsibility, and strengthen communities. Now, John came to service learning in his role as an English composition instructor because he was looking for a way to motivate his students to write. And he found that service learning provided students with a very rich context to write about what they were experiencing that also allowed him to teach them writer's craft and help them develop as writers. So by helping students engage in community projects with people whose lives are directly affected by those projects, service learning was also a tool to help students understand course-related topics from multiple perspectives, from other points of view. Now, in his role as Service Learning Coordinator at SUNY, John's task is to promote, develop, and track service learning opportunities at the SUNY Cortland campus. He also teaches 2 service learning English composition courses. Now, to understand why John is here to talk to us, however, about reflective listening, we need to know a little bit more about his background. So in addition to his wife and 2 sons, John has an extended family of 12 foreign exchange students that over the years have spent an entire year, their senior year, in high school with his family. They've lived with them. And his extended family has become so large that he's going to be having 2 Thanksgivings this year. So he's had 12 foreign exchange students. They've come from 6 different countries: Brazil, Vietnam, China, Japan, Slovakia, Germany, and Sweden. And John draws on this extended family's cross-cultural experiences as they've navigated their foreign exchange programs to develop these professional development workshops that are designed to foster cross-cultural understanding. So we are thankful that John is here today to share his knowledge and expertise with us, and without any further ado, I'd like to bring him on.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you all for letting me take up your time this evening with, actually we have a 2-part workshop. We have in your packets, let me walk you through what you have right here. The first page gives you an overview of the event and some background information, some justification for the use of role plays. In just a few minutes, we'll have our first role play, and everyone is going to have a role. If you don't mind, I will be asking you to join us. We have 2 people who are our protagonists, and then we have other folks who help along the way, and this is our stage right here. That'll be a scripted role play, so you'll have the words right there. When you are not on stage, then you have this next page, the blue page. That is a notepad. You'll see where each of the scenes has some lines that follow. You have a prompt, a guide to use in terms of what to be on the lookout for. And with that in mind, we'll hit this button, which serves as our pause button for the moment. Key to this and the second role play is the idea of making connections. Not so much identifying or finding them, but making the connections between ideas such as the child's physical environment and his or her education. What do you notice in these role plays that might relate to the parent's income and the child's education, and so on? Of course, in addition to that, we'll also, through discussion, be coming up with connections between each of these. The idea here is that we are developing a much more complex understanding of the child's life, which then helps us to better empathize with the child's situation, especially, obviously, in our case, in the classroom. When we say empathize, we don't necessarily mean that we agree with the child's decisions or we agree with a parent's behavior, but at least we understand some of the forces that lead folks to act in particular ways. Moving on now to the next page, you'll see a data sheet. This data sheet provides statistics and claims that our narrator will provide as we go through this first role play, so that you can refer to this. You don't have to be writing down whatever statistic strikes your fancy. You've got it right here. You also have additional material that does not come up during the course of this particular simulation role play. The next blue page is the PowerPoint, or the bulk of the PowerPoint that you'll find. After that, that PowerPoint, by the way, slides us into the second role play. It gives us some background. Then this page is one that you can be referring to, making some notes on, because then from there we'll dive into our next role play, which does not have a script. It is extemporaneous, so you are drawing on your own experience, your own knowledge, and we'll get into that much more deeply, obviously, when we get to that point. Finally, you have a page that gives you bibliographies, two parts. One, STEM and role play. These are current articles from the literature. And then after that, STEM and service learning. Service learning, just so we're all on the same page with what that is, it's an experiential form of learning that connects an academic course with a relevant and meaningful community activity. So, for example, a chemistry course at SUNY Cortland last academic year, students were conducting a water quality study in the Cortland community. Cortland is in central New York. It's about, depending on how you drive, 3.5, 4 hours from here. Just south of the central part of the state. It's a poor rural community. The city of Cortland has a grand total of roughly 19,000 people. Rural, poor, but we are part of the Marcellus aquifer, and there are people who have been blocking, for example, fracking. So speaking of some topics that could be brought into a classroom, hydrofracking, and some other construction projects going on in Cortland that were possibly threatening our water supply. We have a salt aquifer, also right under Cortland itself, and we use that for our drinking water, and we wanted to protect it, and so our students are out there. Students reflected on what they were doing in the larger scope, both politically, economically, socially, and they were learning through the service learning course. They were learning not only how to apply scientific method, but they were also learning about broader issues that can change the way they use those materials, so that when they presented their findings to the city council, they were well prepared, not only scientifically, but in other ways as well. Does that make sense? You also have copies, by the way, of some of the articles that are listed in the biographies. Each table has a different assortment of those. So, before we go any further, does anyone have any questions? All right. We are going to take our supplies here. We have the following roles, and so I'm going to be asking for some volunteers. We have our two protagonists are Mrs. Smith and her daughter, 13-year-old daughter, Minnie. Any volunteers? Who would you like to be?
Mrs. Smith.
Hi, Mrs. Smith. Why don't you, as they say on the TV show, come on down. And your name is?
Marianne.
Hi, Marianne. Hi. Same here. And if you want to have a pen so that you can just circle every time you see your name, there's a script. And I know Minnie must be around here somewhere. Hi, Minnie. I'm John, you are?
Annie.
Annie, hi, Annie. Here's your script. We also have a director. The director is the individual who will be advising our actors when they need to either come on up or have a seat, and the director will be taking that role. Director, hi. I'm John.
Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Nikki.
Nice to meet you.
Same. So there's that. You want to take a look through that. We also have a teacher. Who would like to be our teacher? The teacher is toward the beginning. Thanks, Linda. In addition to these folks, we have a narrator. The narrator will have a role all the way through this, just like Minnie and Mrs. Smith. The narrator gives us information. It's all here, as all in this Bullwinkle would say on this itty-bitty card. Hi, I'm John. Emma. Hi, Emma. Thank you, Emma. In addition to the narrator, we also have, and we're just going to go in order here, we have an employment counselor. We're going to have everybody up here, I think, at this point. Employment counselor?
We go up there.
Yep, and then so that everybody, oh, right now you don't have to. Yep, thank you. For starting off, we're going to have the director, Mrs. Smith, Minnie, and they said the director and narrator would be up here. In addition to, thank you for the question. In addition to the employment counselor, we have a Department of Social Services person. Hi.
Danny.
Hi, Danny.
Nice
John.
to meet you.
Same. All right. Who am I forgetting? I might have a role after all on stage. Okay. Oh, we have two doctors. How could I forget?
Hey, we're at the end.
Hmm?
Now I know what happens.
One of the doctors? You could be Dr. Evans.
Okay.
Thanks. You are?
Margot.
Hi, Margot.
Nice to meet
John, same. And we need a Dr. Iverson. Dr. Iverson. Okay, thanks. We do have signs as to where we are, but I think we'll skip that. We are a cozy enough group where I don't think we need the signs. So I'm going to ask that the narrator and director stay right over there, and that Mrs. Smith can have a seat for the moment. Our teacher needs to come up. And I have a question before we get going. That is, does anyone have any questions? Any of our actors or other role folks have a question with regard to what you have going here? I hope everything is easily seen as to what you've got. We're all set? Okay. For the, oh, and I know there's the magic button right here. There we go. For those of us who are at the table, please take out the blue page that is the playbill. As each scene comes up, take a look at the playbill, see what we're looking at that point. you are free to write down whatever strikes your fancy, whether it's coming directly out of this, something out of your experience, whether it's in the classroom, wherever. We'll be using this later on as we debrief the whole scene, which should take roughly 20 minutes for this particular event. Good. Let the games begin. Okay, so we have, starting us off is the director. Welcome to.
Oh, I read this whole thing.
Yeah, we just go right on through. So you start off, you're the director, and yeah, don't worry, when it says the sign, I'm going to skip the signs. So welcome to the socioeconomic docudrama, and then when you get down to the bottom, here now is our director to introduce Act 1, Scene 1, then the narrator comes on.
Welcome to our socioeconomic docudrama, in which we follow a 2 days in the life drama of 13-year-old Minnie Smith and her mother Dana, as they navigate challenges that middle and upper income people rarely encounter. As this role play unfolds, use your playbill to record ways in which low-income families' challenges could interfere with the child's learning, whether directly or indirectly. Our narrators will give us background information on each scene, and they will provide clues regarding kinds of challenges to notice during each scene. As director, I will let our actors know when they should enter or exit the stage. At the end of the drama, we will share observations, link them to our students' education, and explore ways in which we, as educators, can deal with our students' challenges. Here now is our narrator to introduce Act 1, Scene 1.
In this drama, Dana Smith works during the day. Her husband works 2 jobs, including one in the evening. Together they earn about $40,000 a year. Although this schedule keeps them from seeing each other, it does let them always have an adult at home with their 13-year-old daughter, Minnie. Act 1, Scene 1 takes place in a classroom where Minnie is a student. Be alert to socio-economic factors that could hurt Minnie's ability to learn.
Class, remember, I need your $5 for our Halloween party by tomorrow. Let me know if you need another note for your parents. Okay, we're starting a new lesson today, waterfalls. Minnie, what's it like to be near a waterfall? What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel?
I don't know, Mrs. G. I've never seen one.
You've never seen a waterfall?
Nope, never.
How about in the movies?
I guess, but I don't remember what they look like or sound like.
Great. Well, that about uses up our time. Remember the $5 for tomorrow. Oh, and remind your parents that tonight we have our parent-teacher conferences. Minnie, that means your parents too.
Thank you, Mrs. G. Now Dana can come up.
Over the last 20 years, income for wealthy people in the 35 to 55-year-old age bracket rose 20%, but for poor people in that age group, income fell 20%. In 2012, 22% of US children, 1 in 5, under the age of 6 lived in poverty. The federal poverty level for a family of 3 is $19,790 per year or less, but a living wage for a New York City family of 3 is $45,500 per year. In Scene 2, Dana greets Minnie at home. As they talk, catch comments that suggest direct and indirect challenges to Minnie's education.
Hi, sweetheart. How was your day?
It's okay. It was okay, Mom. Can I have $5?
For what?
Our school Halloween party. I need to hand it in tomorrow.
I don't know, baby. I'll tell you in the morning. Right now, why not get your homework over with?
Okay, then I'll watch TV. Would you help me with this stuff? I did try to do it in study hall, but I couldn't get it. Math.
Let me see. Yeah. No. Holy. Wow. Maybe Daddy can help you with it. What else do you have?
That's it. That's all I have. Honest. So I'm supposed to tell you that you have your parent-teacher conference tonight. Mrs. J really wants to help with you.
Does she? When we went last year, one of the teachers about ripped my face off because I brought you with me. You know that we got no one to watch you if I go, so I guess she'll have to call me.
Now can I watch TV? I love our big news flat screen.
Low-wage workers often work without benefits, such as paid days off, yet there is heavy competition for their jobs, so workers must be very reliable. Act 2, Scene 1 opens on the following morning. Pay attention to health-related issues that can hurt Minnie's education.
Minnie, are you ready for school? As soon as you leave, I'll leave for work.
I'm not feeling well again. I can't week and I just threw up.
Minnie, I don't want to miss a day's pay, and I definitely don't want to get fired because I missed a day.
I'm really not feeling well.
Okay, we'll go to the hospital. I'll call work and tell them that I can't be there. Minnie, I just tried calling work, but the phone's minutes are used up for this month. Did you make any calls?
Yes.
Dana and Minnie take buses to the hospital's urgent care facility, which is where our next scene takes place.
Can Dr. Evans?
A regular part of life in poor families is long-term stress. Parents sometimes try to deal with stress by using alcohol and cigarettes. Secondhand smoke is a kind of in-house toxin. Smoking is more likely in low-income, lower-education families. In children, stress can cause shorter attention spans, memory problems, and weakened thinking skills, as well as hypertension, an impaired immune system, and obesity. Children in low-income families are 1.6 times more likely to be obese than their upper-income peers. Children who are overweight or obese live with a higher risk of serious conditions and illnesses when they become adults. Those conditions include diabetes, heart disease, stroke, and certain cancers. Act 2, Scene 2 opens at a hospital's urgent care centre. Note health-related issues that could hurt Minnie's education.
Hello, Mrs. Smith, Minnie. I'm Dr. Evans. Minnie, how long have you had this breathing problem?
Since at least last winter, probably longer. It's not as bad in summer when I'm outside more, or when I'm at a friend's house, or at school.
Mrs. Smith, what have you done to help Minnie's breathing? My husband and I thought that Minnie would get over it. That was only a small problem, but it's been getting worse, so that's why we're at the hospital. Oh, yes. Sorry.
My bad.
Okay, well, Minnie has asthma. I believe she's not going to get over it unless you and Mr. Smith stop smoking in the house. I smell cigarette smoke, so I'm assuming that you smoke. How many packs a week do you and your husband smoke?
We smoke maybe about every couple of days, each of us, because we're stressed. We both work, but we're putting food on the table is still tough. Seems like every other day we're getting a late notice on Red Army Electric. Or the phone card runs out.
Mrs. Smith, I do understand using cigarettes or beer to beat the stress, but you know you're only making things worse. Minnie's asthma is caused, or at least made worse, by secondhand smoke. You need to stop smoking in the house. Call the New York State Quit line to find ways to quit. If you want, I'll write you and Mr. Smith prescriptions for nicotine patches.
Okay, we'll do that with the patch. Thanks. But what about the stress? We're both already losing sleep.
I'll refer you to a mental health counselor.
Does that mean that Mom and Dad stop smoking?
I hope so, but it might take a while because there's a 9-month wait before they can meet with a counselor. Now, you, young lady, sorry, but you need to lose weight. If not, you'll soon be feeling a lot of bone and muscle pain. We'll discuss that later. Now, let's find out more about your symptoms. What are the other symptoms, Minnie, and how long have you had them?
I've been having trouble breathing for at least a month, and I feel real tired, and I've been throwing up for a couple of weeks.
Got it. Well, I'm going to run blood and urine tests. Come back tomorrow afternoon so that we can discuss the results of those tests.
The counselor.
When Dana and Millie arrive home, Dana finds a note from a friend and co-worker. The note says that Dana has been fired for missing work. Dana decides to look for work at an employment agency. She takes Minnie with her, identifies situations and conditions that could weaken Minnie's education.
So, Mrs. Smith, according to your application, you've completed high school. I've looked over our current job openings for high school graduates. There's only one that fits your training. The only one that fits your training is as a waitress at a restaurant. It starts at $5.60 an hour.
$5.60 an hour? That's not even minimum wage.
That's because you're supposed to be able to make up the difference and more with tips.
Okay, that's the only job with me right now. When can I start?
You could start tonight.
Oh, I just assumed that it was a day job.
Sorry, it's a 24-hour restaurant. You could start with the shift, then later maybe move to daytime hours once you have seniority.
Can't do it. My husband already works the graveyard shift. We need someone at home with Minnie. I'm sorry, but now I don't know what to do.
I'll keep your application on file and let you know when something else shows up. In the meantime, why not apply for unemployment?
Well, as I said in my application, I got fired from my last job, so I don't think that I can get unemployment.
How about applying for food stamps?
No thanks. I earned my keep.
You've worked and paid taxes, Mrs. Smith. We're all in this together. I'll ask you to think about how much food you have in your kitchen and to think about your daughter. If you do decide to go, the Department of Social Services is right next door.
The DDS employee. Dana decides to swallow her pride and go to DSS to apply for food stamps. As with previous scenes, write down situations and conditions that could hurt Minnie's education.
What's your name? What are you here for?
I'd like to get food stamps.
Yep. Before we start, tell your kid that she cannot be sitting here. She needs to sit over there. There. Awesome. Now, food stamps. Aren't food stamps anymore? They're EBT cards.
EBT?
Electronic Benefit Transfer Cards. EBT. Part of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Gives us better control over who's using them and for what. Know what I mean?
Sure, what's next?
I've read your application. You're approved.
Thank you. So how much do we get?
Looks like about $110.
110 for the whole family?
You got it. That breaks down to $5.25 per person per day.
$5 a day? How can we live on that?
Hey, I don't make the rules, okay? The average in New York State is $4.65 per person, so don't complain.
Whatever. Where do I get this card?
You can get it here, though you might have to wait for up to 45 days.
Dana, you can sit there. Dr. Evans. As Act 3, Scene 1 opens, the Smiths are back at the hospital to find out the diagnosis for Millie's symptoms. Dr. Evans asks to meet with Minnie. Oh, sorry, I keep changing her name. Before speaking also with Dana, you know what to look for.
Minnie, I tested your urine for pregnancy and it came back positive. You're pregnant. Did you think that you might be pregnant?
Me and my boyfriend had sex, but it was real careful.
Okay, I'm going to ask a gynecologist, Dr. Iverson, to speak with you. May I ask your mother to speak with Dr. Iverson also?
Yeah, I guess so.
Misunderstandings about sex can lead to STDs, to pregnancy, or to both. In 2012, 2 out of every 5 births in the US were to unmarried individuals. The birth rate for US teens was almost 1 in 3. In Act 3, Scene 2, identify Minnie's misunderstandings about sex.
Mrs. Smith and Minnie, hello, I'm Dr. Iverson. I am a gynecologist. Dr. Evans referred me to you.
Why do we need a gyno?
We have a sensitive topic to discuss. Minnie is pregnant. Minnie has given me permission to tell you about her pregnancy.
What? How? Is that low-life boyfriend of yours?
It can't be true. Yes, okay. Alright, we had sex. But there's no way I can be pregnant because I did things that to not get pregnant.
Really? Like what?
Lots of things. We waited till that time of the month. We were standing up. We didn't do, oral sex. I also didn't want to get the pill because it makes girls fat.
Minnie, you are pregnant. My concern now is that you take care of yourself so that you and your baby are healthy. I'll make an appointment for you to be seen at the 3 clinic so that you can start your parents.
Thank you, Dr. Ashton. Along with secondhand smoke, another kind of in-house toxin is non-nutritious eating habits. Some people do not know how to cook certain healthy vegetables. Some people cook in non-nutritious ways, such as frying. Some eat a lot of processed foods, which have high sugar levels. Some eat a lot of canned foods, which usually have high salt content. In Act 3, Scene 3, Minnie and Dana are back home.
Minnie, what do you want for dinner? I can fry up some kielbasa and macaroni and cheese. You should start eating more veggies, so I'll heat up some canned peas.
Sounds yummy, Mom. Oh, I brought home some sushi. I can't even say it. Whatever. It's from my health teacher. It's supposed to be healthy.
What the heck is this? I have no idea what it is. Never mind how to cook it.
That's fine with me, Mom. They look strange anyway. Oh, the grocery store has a special on 2-liter bottles of Coca-Cola, 2 for $1.
If you give me $1, I'll go get a couple.
That is our docudrama. Before we discuss the ideas and actions in this event, let's thank our actors for volunteering.
Thank you all.
I'm wondering if we can turn our seats around so that everybody can see everyone else and we can have a discussion about this first simulation. I'm asking also that as we discuss this, keep in mind that as far as we're concerned, there is no one right answer. Part of the idea here is that it's complicated. Each of us has our own experiences with children and with their parents, so I'm just as thirsty for your ideas as I hope you are for everybody else's ideas, that we're all pooling our experiences and our thoughts on this. Does that make sense? No right answer, no wrong answer. It's your thoughts backed up with whatever data you can bring from your own experience and from the data sheet. So, to start this discussion going, I'm wondering about any conflict of experiences that you had here with your experiences, or any of the conflicts that you saw within the action itself. For example, Minnie can't bring $5 to school for the Halloween party, and yet we've got a big flat screen TV and mom's puffing away at whatever it is, $10 a pack. Comments, questions, observations about this? And this again is a large group discussion, so the focus is not here, the focus is on everyone else. Just dive right in.
I can definitely relate to Minnie, because I've had times when, $5 was like, well, we don't have that in my family, and both of my parents smoke, and I had to literally force them to stop smoking in the house. So now what they do is just lock their rooms and smoke in their rooms, and I'm trying to get them to quit smoking. So I can definitely relate to that.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think the idea of financial fluency is I think it's easier to understand if you always had money around, but if you didn't, it's hard to understand why they'd spend money on a big flat screen TV and not save the $5 for when Minnie would need it. But at least in my experience at school, meeting people from different socioeconomic backgrounds, my friends explained to me that it's when you have that money, because it's a rare thing, you just spend it when you have it. And so to some people it doesn't make sense, but to the way they spend it makes sense to them.
Who disagrees? That's a stupid decision to make. You finally got that money. At least you could be putting money in the bank and save it for that proverbial rainy day.
I mean, it's irrational, but yeah.
I mean, yeah, maybe it's a stupid decision, but a lot of the it's not their fault really that they made that decision. Like you said, financial fluency, they've really never had the education, or I would not necessarily, if I got a lot of money, I think it'd be very tempting, or just any amount of money, I think it'd be very tempting to not have a rainy day fund. And it wouldn't be unless there was someone there forcing me to do it that I'd probably do it. So just the community aspect and educational aspect is what's limiting them in that.
Also, when times are tough, I think in certain communities, you have that mindset, I just want to enjoy and be happy whenever I can. I don't really care about saving up for a disaster, because it feels like life is always one big disaster. So let's just buy a flat screen,
I'm sorry.
We also don't know what's gone on to sort of behind the decision making. We're assuming that it was just sort of a spontaneous splurge, But it could very well be that they've narrowed down their choices and this is what, the household voted on or something. Sort of that's that image that it's just sort of needless, when maybe that's exactly what they needed.
And that echoes a reflection that a community health student at SUNY Cortland wrote, in which she was counseling a low-income mom, letting her know what her priorities should be. The mom said, "I appreciate your concern. However, from our perspective, these two items are more important for us, and here's why." So again, empathizing, trying to figure out what other reasons might be behind the decision.
Well, you also might not know what community they're in. So like if it's a type of community where everyone else has a flat screen, then it would make sense to, like, you'd want to fit in.
I don't know if it was written like a specific way, but like I find it interesting that we never want to see the father in here. So we don't know like whether like how the mother and father like plan like what they're spending and stuff like that. So I don't know.
So playing Minnie, I got the idea that the mom didn't really trust her that much, especially when the teacher also said, "Let me know if you need another note for your parents." So it seems like there's been a history of mistrust, like misunderstanding or whatever, and the mom's like, "Oh, what are you going to do with the $5?" So.
I kind of felt like at least the first healthcare professional was like very blunt, which I guess is how they're supposed to be, but kind of was like uncomfortable. I don't know. I've never like. I guess I don't really go to the hospital that much, but I wonder if like people have experienced that.
The part where he was like, "You're obese."
Yeah, like you need to lose weight. You're like nicer ways to say that.
Bedside manner.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's also interesting because of the lack of income. Like she prioritizes her work over like going to support her daughter, like going to the school and speak to the teacher, because it's clear that like she doesn't go, and she said, well, she'll call the teacher or something. So she has to prioritize finding a job over being there with her daughter's academics and everything.
Each of these scenes is based on either they come out of a narrative from the literature or from experiences that my students have had, other students at SUNY Cortland have had, faculty and staff have had. For example, the scene at which, where are we? We're at DSS, Department of Social Services. There is a now retired professor who she and her family had fallen on hard times. She swallowed her pride, went to DSS, and the person at DSS told her that your kid cannot be sitting at this desk. Tell her to sit over there, which was behind a divider. Let's be gentle and say that a person whom you would not want to have sit next to your young daughter wanders in, goes up to the desk, is told, "Wait your turn, sit over there," right next to the daughter. So now you have mom who wants to be with the daughter and protect her, but still I need to be getting this form filled out so we can get our finances going and get food on the table. And there are other examples that could go through here. All of these are based on experiences told through the literature or through experiences that I've heard from folks on campus, which then leads back to how do you work with your children, the children in your class, your students, when I asked you to have your mom and dad come up and see me last night for the conference. Again, not there. It's no wonder you're failing. How do you deal with that? As the teacher, when the child's parents, for example, don't come in.
It's complicated. I mean, clearly, she didn't have childcare. Although that kind of confused me a little bit, because then you know, the part that she was 13, I mean, some 13-year-olds you would leave home alone with the flat screen TV, maybe a babysitter.
Clearly, she went and got pregnant, so maybe you
Yeah,
don't want to leave her
exactly.
home
So maybe you
alone.
don't want to leave her home. Yeah, so there's a lot going on here, but I just think it's complicated, but it's very true that they often will not have childcare, and schools will not look kindly on parents dragging their children along to parent meetings or to conferences and things like that. So parents have to kind of make a decision. Either I'm going to go and drag her along and get yelled at for dragging her along, or I'm going to leave her home alone and maybe I don't trust her to be home alone.
As a teacher, isn't the conference more effective when you have the student there?
You would think.
It depends on the age group, and it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But with older students, it often is.
How do you define, like
you wouldn't want to have a first grader or a kindergartner at a conference.
but like a 13-year-old?
But a 13-year-old, yeah, you absolutely. There's different ways of approaching conferencing. Some schools like to have a conversation about the student, and some schools like to have a conversation with the student, or with the student actually controlling the conversation, saying, this is what I'm doing, and engaging both the teacher and the parent as support. That's what I would say is the ideal secondary model, but not every school does it.
Yeah, we have a school that we work with, Baldwin High School, where they do student-led conferences, and the student actually picks the work that they're going to show during their student-led conference that meets standards, and they do a reflection on how it meets the learning targets, and they prepare for these meetings, and they're the ones that are facilitating that meeting, and the teacher actually doesn't talk until the point where the student starts talking to them about, here's how you can help me improve or meet these learning targets even better. So it's really student-led. They really strive towards that. That's a rare model in education.
I think in the whole play, there's like a lot of terrible things, right? Like she's pregnant, and there's the unemployment, and the like not having enough food. But there's some things that just Minnie's dealing with that aren't necessarily terrible, but are still different from students who aren't in her background, like just having to remind her mother about the parent-teacher conference. That someone in a different background probably doesn't have to do that, but it's very like put into their parents' like phones, and they're aware of it and they have an alert for it. And I feel like those small things that aren't terrible, but are things that are still taking up space that could be used for other things in that student's brain. I feel like, why didn't the teacher phone home and remind the parent about the conference? That you can take away those things that are difficult and try and deal with that.
Kind of adding on to what you said, these little things, one thing that kind of stuck out to me was when Minnie wanted help on her math homework, and her mom kind of looks at it and goes, maybe you can ask your dad. And I feel like a lot of the times kids in these types of backgrounds have similar problems where they look to their parents for help because they don't understand their homework, but their parents also don't have, I guess, the knowledge or the experience with what they're dealing with. And I feel like there's this problem with teachers and what they expect from their students, but they don't also take into consideration what goes on at home and what their parents can bring to them, because not all kids have the same experiences. Not all kids come with the same type of knowledge and experiences.
What information did our narrator give that surprised you, or what information are you seeing in the data sheet that surprised you or that you disagree with?
The birth rate for U.S. teens was almost 1 in 3 in 2012. I was shocked by that.
Obviously the food stamp number was terrifying, and especially in New York.
Yes.
I think 469 or whatever it was. It's crazy.
I expected the living wage for New York City to be high, but more than double was crazy.
More than double?
Yeah. More than double the federal poverty level.
Oh. Although I understand it's being revised, but the federal poverty level was designed in 1963. Obviously, much has changed in these years, and so there are folks working on a different way of computing poverty. And then you can go to a source such as the Heritage Foundation as a way of complicating this conception of what poverty in the United States is. At that site, you'll read an article in which the author wonders, how can a person be poor if that person has a car, if that person has a flat screen TV, even though that person bought it on rent to own, which presents its own set of problems. And so here you have all of these tangible goodies, and you consider yourself poor, really? So part of our job as educators is to be able to feel some of these different points of view, whether in the classroom or as citizens, and deciding on whom to vote for. Any other questions, comments, observations on this role play?
The part about the zucchini, obviously it was like good intentions from some teacher, but probably like not great follow through. Maybe the lesson wasn't as effective, that the students didn't know how to pronounce zucchini, you know?
This, yeah. That example comes from my wife, whom I have to thank. She teaches science at the McCormick facility in central New York. It is a maximum security facility for young men 14 through 21 years of age. She helped me to put the two parts of this workshop together so that they are coherent, cohesive. She has been mentoring children for some years now in Cortland County. At one point, this was through the YWCA, she had been asked to conduct a few get-togethers with moms in town. So Kathy brought in some zucchini as healthy food. All the oxidants and whatever other good stuff would be in zucchini. And a couple of the moms looked at these things and said, what is this? What am I supposed to do with this? So that's where that particular example came from. And yet she grew up in the North Country, and they had their own farm, and they just had food from the earth right there, and she knew it all. But these gals were brought up in I say city of Cortland. It is governed as a city, it's set up as a city, but the tallest building is 4 stories tall. So when I first got there, I'm looking, where's the city? But it is I have to say, it's a good place to live. We are going to then move on. We can always come back to the material here later on. We will have another debrief after this next session. The next session, I'll bring your attention up to the screen, is on a way of working with, developing strong relationships with folks, especially in tense situations where we have a lot of emotion. And we're going to be focusing in specifically on the classroom. And here, where we had largely socioeconomic differences in this first role play, in the second one, we're getting more into some cultural and political differences, again, specifically in a STEM classroom. Basic model of communication, where we have whomever is speaking has both verbal and nonverbal messages, and often, as we know, the nonverbal carries more weight, so to speak, is more important than the verbal. Really important to our work here is we have not only the cognitive portion of the message, but the emotional component. There's a lot of fairly recent research that suggests that maybe the cognitive and the emotional are not as separate as we, through our language, make them. That they, in many ways, they're processed together. As listeners, we have beliefs that serve as filters. These filters can cut out some of, or warp some of the message that the person speaking is sending or what we're reading, and so that we will not really understand, we will not really empathize with that individual, not understand what she or he is saying. Oh, excuse me, you're really a liberal? Well, then obviously you don't understand business. And so anything you say is going to be, if that's my filter, I'm not going to be understanding what you're saying. So we need to empathize, understand where the other person is coming, both cognitively and emotionally. If we can get rid of those filters through what we're going to be having, which is reflective listening. By the way, another way of thinking of reflective listening is active listening, to separate this from reflection, where we start considering some of the relationships between what, for example, what we expect and what we find in the field, for example, and making sense of those. So I just want to point that out and thank Maria for reminding me to make that, suggesting that I make that clear. All right. About 20 years ago, I was at a workshop in which, with an organization that goes to public schools to help teachers and administrators play nice. Although they did not call their work reflective listening, that in effect is what it was. When the facilitator for this workshop explain, well, all I'm asking you to do is ask open-ended questions and then paraphrase what the person is saying, what the person is feeling, I'm thinking, what the heck can be so hard about that? I have realized that it ain't easy. But the younger a person is, the easier we expect it will be to break what, at least for those of us in Western society, or I guess I should say more specifically, the US, tends to be not trying to figure out where the person is coming from, but to tell them what to do. So a person in an office, and this is an experience, was all bent out of shape because he would come in the morning, make coffee, but he got here before everybody else. He'd go to his desk, do his work, and by the time he got back to the coffee machine, it was all gone. So he comes to me and he's complaining, and my response was, why don't you just go to the boss and say, why don't you do something so that when I make coffee, you know, people leave some for me, blah, blah, blah. As it turns out, the coffee was not the problem. There was another problem. The bottom line here was that he was worried that he was going to be canned. He was going to be let go. And it was the coffee that just got him to start complaining. But deep inside, that was the issue. Had I used this, I might have been able to help him work that out. And at another time, we can talk about some ways in which this has helped. As a matter of fact, we'll hit one in the not too distant future. So I'm going to be asking you to practice this during our next role play. So I'm going to ask you to be sure that you make a note, and you can take a look at the white piece of paper that says reflective listening on it. We have a three-step dance that we're doing coming up in just a minute. Oh, and forgive me, I know that you are immersed in science, but regardless, as an English teacher, I have to say that sometimes relying on logic is illogical because the emotion can get in the way, and we have to understand that. Alrighty? As an English teacher, I use reflective listening in a number of ways. We have professional development for our students, especially for those who are in education. That reflective listening, what we just talked about, is the basis for the tutoring that our students do. We also use reflective listening in our peer review with essays. I had a high school teacher, junior high school teacher, who drove me nuts because he would always hand back the essay and say, "John, you need to change it this way." He would tell me how to write the paper. And I felt like saying, "Great, you write the paper." This approach applied to the revision of an essay, the revision stage of the writing process, helps the author write her essay. So we have students working in threes. One is the observer to make sure that we can have a debrief later on and make sure that the process is being followed. The editor is the listener. The editor will ask certain open-ended questions and then paraphrase back. So one question might be, what is your thesis statement? Another might be, how does that thesis statement, how might that be interesting to your intended reader? And so you have basic questions that get the author thinking so that she can make her own changes. The process that we were talking about before. So this is applicable in a number of ways. We'll be working in groups of 3. One person will be that observer. That individual you'll have some space on the paper that you'll get from me, and you can jot down how well the individual is doing or what that person has done that might be tweaked to improve. On your sheet of paper, maybe you start as the observer, then you become the listener. You are the teacher, and you'll have an idea as to what you're looking for, what you're trying to do in that particular situation. Oops. And then you'll be either the student or the parent, and you can move this on. You'll have a piece of paper, and here's an example of one. Regardless of what your paper has here, we'll move in this order. You can fold the paper into these 3 columns. We'll start at the left column. So in each group of 3 people, we'll have one person who's the observer. In this case, if this is your piece of paper, you serve as the observer. Someone else will be the speaker in this column, and someone else will be the student or parent in this column. We'll have about 4 or 5 minutes of the role play. Again, this is extemporaneous, so there's no script. If you're the listener, you're asking open-ended questions and you're paraphrasing back. And then we just move right along. Okay. Here is a demonstration, I'm going to ask for a volunteer, and I put my papers where I wouldn't lose them, which is the first mistake I made. If we can just pause for station identification. Embarrassing moment number one. There is a packet of paper. You'll see multicolored pages.
Oh,
Yeah.
is this under here?
No, there's a lot more of those. So you'll have, yeah, these. There's a packet, and I probably, I wish we could cut the, it's right here. Right under my nose. All right, I'm going to ask for a volunteer to come up, and everybody other than the two of us up in front will be the observers. So, may I have a volunteer? Thanks. Now, sure. We are not seeing what our student has. You are seeing what I have. My goal is to convince Lee. This is based on an actual situation that I'm happy to say worked out well. Lee's been doing pretty well for about 3 months, but over the last week, not so good. Not been handing in homework, has an attitude, and then you'll see when you have this as a listener, you have a cue as to how to start things going. So my start is, I'm going to start the discussion by saying, okay, there's the bell, see you next time. Lee, let me talk to you before you leave. This is extemporaneous now. So, you've not been handing in your homework. I need you to get the homework in by the end of today, or midterms are right here. You're going to have a U for the midterm.
I don't care.
Wow, Lee, you're a freshman. Excuse me, you're a first-year student. You might have, and I think you do have, a loan. You're going to lose the loan. You're going to be going back home. You won't be able to party like all the other students. So, your choice, dude.
Look, obviously you think this homework is important, but right now I'm not really seeing how important it is. Sorry.
Well, I'm just going to leave it at this then. It's all on your shoulders. I'm going to leave by 4 o'clock today. If I don't have your paper, your homework, by that time, then it's a U, or it might even be just an F for the midterm.
Well, I might not even be here. So what do I care about you?
Fine, you know, do me a favor. If that's your decision, then I'll have one less paper to read. You know how many papers I have to read every week?
I can just imagine.
So maybe you can't. So if that's the way it is, fine. It's your case, your decision. Done. So, how did the listener do?
You?
Yeah.
Oh, no, good.
You were terrible.
You gotta be kidding me. Why?
You weren't sensitive. You could have asked, how was your day? You could have
You
asked,
never
is
even
there a
asked her
reason?
why she wasn't.
Doing the homework. Like, why is she
Who
not?
cares?
Well, maybe
I know
something's
you're
going
doing-
on with her. That she's not doing the homework. You just got straight to business and you're like, how was your day? How are you doing? Trying to see if there's something wrong
You
with her.
also made a lot of assumptions, like that she wanted to party with the other students.
Yeah.
I guess he kind of forgot that he did do his homework for the last 3 months, so this is obviously not a pattern in his homework habits, so this is something out of the ordinary, so.
True. All right, with that, let's redo this. The second way is going to be closer to what actually happened. Lee, do you have a minute? Let me see you just for a minute right after, now that we're done.
Sure.
Class? Thanks. And there's another class coming in, so we're just going to go around around to another room. I know there's a room that there's nobody there, right? We're now in the other room. What's going on? For the first half of this semester, you've been participating in class, great ideas, good observations. The agency supervisor, Sarah, said that you're a star down there. Your homework is always on time. It's detailed. It's good stuff. This past week, maybe 10 days, something's going on. What's happening?
Oh, I don't know.
How comfortable do you feel talking to me about this?
Well, I really have been trying, but I guess in the last couple of days, I've just not been sure what to do.
And how come you're not sure what's going on? What are you not sure about?
You don't know already?
Seriously, if I did, I'd be talking to you about, I'd tell you that I knew.
Well, look, here's what happened. I might get expelled. You don't know anything about this?
No, seriously.
Well, yeah, like I'm in trouble because Lisa over there gave me on a dare. She wanted me to do this thing where I was like involved in cyberbullying, and now they might want to expel me, and so I'm kind of feeling like, why should I bother doing the homework if I might get kicked out anyway?
Got it. With whom have you been talking in the administration?
Principal, guidance counselor.
Okay. Unless you have an objection, what I'd like to do is to get in touch with Principal Egan and at least voice support for you, that you're admitting that it was not the smartest move, but behind that you've been doing all this work.
I've never done anything like that before in my life, and I'm really sorry about it. You know, it was stupid. I shouldn't have done it. So yeah, I mean, if you can help me, that'd be great.
Consider it done, and I will follow up with you. I'll let you know what the conversation was all about.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was the incident. Although the incident was not about cyberbullying, it was a young man. He got into a fight, and he was arrested. It wasn't good. But I did write a note. I did make the phone call, and then he was, at least for a while, he was on a straight and narrow. I think there were other things going on. He didn't make it to the end of the semester. But at least our working relationship was saved from that. And yeah. So any questions about what I'm going to be asking you to do in just a moment with the pages that you'll have a sheet of paper and you'll have these 3 roles. We're going to be breaking up into teams of 3. Why don't we do that? Just get into teams of 3, and then I'm going to be handing out the papers.
We can spread out.
That'd be great. Yep. And I'm going to put these face down, and then just take one, but you can read it, but just.
Are you going to join a group so there's at least 3 in the group, or does it?
Sure. So one of the 3 of you?
Or they could go to that table.
Or yeah, the rest of the table.
They are color-coded, so just take one. Certainly read the what you have on your particular page, but do not show it to the other folks. And am I missing? All right. I'll take a moment and then ask. Yeah, just take anybody. Takes one call. Yep.
There's a lot of different
You're starting with the one on the left.
Yep. So wait, I'll ask you to start, and I'll time for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then we'll go on from there. Okay, we'll start with that left-hand column. You might want to just fold the page so that you're only looking at the leftmost column. And this way, you know specifically what your role is. Any questions before we start? Okay, so we are looking at the leftmost column. In this case, the teacher is Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. Blauwasser, and the parent is Ms. Dudley, and we have the observer. We're good? Let's let the games begin.
So I think if I'm reading it right, I'm Mrs. Blauwasser.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So. So the teacher starts the conversation.
Why did you want to come over to chapter?
I heard you were doing things, fracking. It was really fun. Too fun. I didn't like using a jelly donut with fracking. I don't know, I have to say that I'm fundamentally opposed to fracking. And I'm wondering if you could give a more balanced perspective of this topic to students, because I think my son left with the idea that fracking is a positive thing.
Okay. Why did he say to you that he thought it was a positive thing?
Well, I think I only got the side that was the fun side.
Mm-hmm.
You know, did he come out and say, wow, this is really fun? No, but I mean, I know my son, and I think that he just took from it that it was a positive.
Yeah, I think that's kind of fair, because it was with a Twinkie and a jelly donut. I can see why that would be fun. I guess what I was hoping some of the point of the lesson was just to be aware of what fracking is, rather than to have a judgment on it. I think that potentially if a judgment came across, then we can have a follow-up lesson. Maybe perhaps you could tell me some of your opinions of why you think fracking is a negative.
Jeez. Look, I'm just opposed to it.
I mean,
mining the earth in this way is really depleting the earth, and I think that the negative side effects are well known. And I think that your idea of dealing with this topic is excellent. But I do think that students at this age need to be told that there are different sides. I don't know if my son really understands that there are a multitude of feelings about this. And so I'm feeling as though this could be dealt with to support the parents, especially in our beliefs, in a more fair capacity at school.
Okay, so what I hope is that by sucking out the filling of a Twinkie, that they learn the basics of just what fracking is, and then in a follow-up lesson we can discuss more of the different side points. I think we're planning on actually carrying out a debate in the lesson.
Fantastic.
And then they'll apply the knowledge that they learned in that.
I think that sounds fantastic, and I appreciate you sort of seeing our side, seeing my side. I think that'll be really fair. Thank you.
As the observer, how would you discuss specifically the teacher's behavior as a reflective listener?
Yeah, I think you did a good job. Some of the good things you did were to not only ask
like understand that okay, she's like not into fracking, but like why is she not into fracking? And then resolve it by saying that okay, here are the ways we can fix the lesson to make it better or have an outcome that she would prefer. Which I thought was really good.
You're completely right. I mean, it's interesting too because when parents, well, I've been, there's this feeling that you have to back down quickly. And I actually liked that you really sort of spelled it out and then put it back on me saying, well, what is it specifically that you know, which I wasn't but I think that it's a great approach. And then offering the debate, I think that I hadn't seen that coming, and right away it sort of disarmed me, which I thought was really effective because I was like, all right, a debate would really be a great idea.
Yeah.
So,
and I felt like not that you were aggressive before, then you weren't, but like yeah, exactly. You just kind of like, oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's like the sudden disarmament
Yeah.
when someone can not only empathize, but then offer solution strategy, which is often lacking. You know, they're waiting for solutions to show up, but you gave one, which I think is really
Thanks. I'm going to see what we're going to do. We're going to pause here and see how our respective teachers did. We can pause and just see how our teams did.
So you want the observer to speak now?
Yes, please. So,
I actually don't know, like, what did your...
She was the listener and she was the speaker, right?
So I think that you definitely did a very good job in listening to what she had to say and kind of reflecting on it, and then kind of working, I guess, reacting to it and seeing how what she was saying you could implement into your classroom and how you could change it. So it was nice that you're very receptive to what she was saying, and you also obviously actively listening.
I think it was, it diffuses the whole situation, right?
Very fast.
Because she's coming in critical, and if you get critical, it's not going to be good. But the fact that you listened and you appreciated and you agreed and you gave examples of how you could, work with the class, that was great. Good job.
shall we move on to the middle column? And now the teacher is Mr. and Mrs. Ham. And if you just take a moment to make sure that you've got your roles down pat, and then the teacher, again, starts the lesson the way that it's pointed out at the bottom.
So we're not supposed to read these data?
So we're moving on to the second middle column. Perfect. And here, Teacher Ham starts us off with the comment at the bottom.
I'm the listener, or I'm the observer.
And you are Teacher Ham, so you are the listener.
Oh, there's no attached passage on the
Do I have to read?
Oh,
I just make up.
just make something up. Sorry, thanks.
Who's Mr. or Mrs.? Okay.
So I've included this article.
Are you the student?
Yeah. Wait, and I said.
Yeah, there's my goof. There's no.
Oh, gotcha.
There's no reader.
I can make it up. That's fine.
Kim, could you read past this?
Evolution is great. Evolution is wonderful.
I'm into it, except history majors. So we're going to add the article. I'm electing.
Sorry, can I just, I'm the student.
So you're Kim.
Yes.
Kim, I've been thinking about moving forward with our evolution, and I'd love you to start by taking us through this article. I know you're new from another state, so I think it'd be great for you to just start right out.
Okay. Evolution is the answer to all our questions. Evolution is great. I can't read this anymore. Sorry.
You're done.
Yeah, I'm done.
I think that it's important now to keep sort of taking us through it, because while you might be done the rest of it.
Yeah, but like my parents told me that evolution is just a theory and it's not proven at all. So I don't think we should be learning something that's not even real.
So at this school, we don't necessarily believe that your parents might be telling you. While we talk about creationism, which it sounds like maybe that's something you're more comfortable with, perhaps not. We do tend to sort of fundamentally stick with evolutionism. But maybe if we get through this article, if you can do that for us, maybe then you could take us through sort of a counter narrative that you've experienced.
I don't know. I feel like you're taking my rights away
Which rights went from school?
to believe in creationism.
So does reading your article mean that you actually are supporting what you're reading?
I guess technically, but I don't know. I'm just pretty sure I don't believe in it.
Okay, fine. So would you not, do you not even want to read the words, or that is that Are you so against it that even reading about it is something that's beyond your realm?
I mean, I guess that's a reasonable thing to do. Yes, I can read it.
I mean, honestly, you're new to the school, and I'm trying to sort of give our audience a sense of just you and sort of introduce you this way. But then I think it's fair if we go back and have you describe what your beliefs have been over time. Is that comfortable for you?
That's fair.
Cut.
I didn't know I was supposed to give it. It didn't give me any instructions.
Why are you telling me that you
I tried.
Is this too much? Okay.
This is hard. Because now you're going to be questioning around
let me not bring my own personal
This is kind of like a reflective moment, but it's interesting you should say that, because technically as a teacher, you're never supposed to actually cite your own beliefs in the classroom. Yeah.
Versus content.
You know, so what you want to do is just really kind of stick to the science of it and say, well, this is the science class, right?
Yeah, that's what I say. Read it. Problematic.
And we're going to focus on the science. This is the content I'm required to teach you. And then I think even the other piece of it is like having to ask all these questions, like and challenge you, like in the class. That's like really hard, right? And so you really want to get into like a verbal like back and forth, and then all the kids go home and they're like, oh yeah, you know, Miss So-and-so was telling us that this is true, and you know, and then other parents are going to come in.
I would just
That's kind of like I said.
wrong, but after class, I actually
She said, like, you know, I don't believe in evolution. And like, when you bringing God into the classroom is I mean, I don't know about you, but
you couldn't articulate
when you're like,
yeah,
so like,
yeah, and what words might you speak like that?
so I thought that, like, you felt like you were like right, like you're like,
Emphasizing.
you're trying to emphasize,
Especially without a
like,
script.
and then like, then it's like, oh, like,
Please.
you can't emphasize because there's going to be kids in that class who are going to be hurt when you say, when you bring God into it, because some of them might not believe in God. And you say, oh, but you agree with her, but like my religion says this. So I feel like she's right. The easiest way is just to go back to talk about the science, and because if you start talking about both systems, the religious system and the science system, they're gonna contradict eventually. So you could say, we can talk with you and your parents later about how you could do this curriculum, like how you can get through these assignments because you still have to complete these assignments. But just me personally, I should probably if we start bringing.
I think as a teacher, what is really good to do, like you were saying, also don't bring in religion. You want to
you want to like obviously acknowledge what your students are saying. You don't want to just kind of like shove it under the rug, but you can say something that I understand that we can look at evolution through different lenses. The lens that you're looking at it through is like a religious lens, but today we're going to be scientists. As scientists, we're going to look at it through this kind of lens, you know, just show them that there is definitely multiple ways of looking at a subject or a topic, but you just have to kind of bring back the discussion and kind of bring back the attention on what the main point you're going to be teaching, which is evolution as a scientist. And as a scientist, we see evolution as, like you said, steps, and it's like, yeah, I mean, you were doing a good job.
Yeah.
I can definitely see how it's hard.
Yeah.
I can definitely see how
I
it's
think
hard.
all of it, I think coming on the stage was just the religion. That's just something that the natural thing to do is empathize with the students.
We need to move on. But it's, conversation is good.
Not my intention at all. Let
You
me
ready for
explain what
the
my thinking
third?
was, and I'd love to hear from you as well. Because kind of like noticed that, you know, boys partner up and girls partner up. So I wanted to start getting people to come out of their comfort zone a little bit, just to get people to get my students to think about, you know, that both boys and girls can be great at chemistry.
I don't think so that she needs to work with a boy to realize that.
Right. I mean, I guess I'd like to hear like what exactly you object to with them working together, because it's like they're not like touching you. Is it like a physical thing or a friendship thing? Okay. I mean, I hear your concerns.
I feel like I'm being unhelpful, but only because I really have been in this situation.
Oh, really?
Like, very close situations. I've been in situations where a father wouldn't shake my hand, not necessarily like a left hand, but just he wouldn't touch a woman.
Sure.
And I just felt like give up. And I know that sounds, but like, I felt like fathers come in and have just do not think that I in any way should be doing that job. And so I just feel like you just go, okay, great, like, I'm so glad you came in, I'll park and bring your daughter to the girl, done. Like, I just think,
fix it.
I know that sounds really bad, but I just think there's some cultural situations where like you can't change, you're not going to change that man's mind.
Yeah.
So why not just park his daughter? That would be mine. And I just, I've been to parents' evenings where I was just like, I don't know what to do in this situation. Yeah.
Where did this belief?
Yeah, I don't know what I would say. And I agree, especially here we like at Barnard we have like a huge population of students that are like Orthodox, whatever it is. And so like I'm an RA, so like we deal with all sorts of things like that. And most of the time we just say yes, comply to whatever it is.
Well, what I loved about it, though, what you did after sort of you got a grip, like, okay, this person's actually serious about this, is that you did give an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah.
You did give an opportunity.
Oh, yes, please, I'm sorry.
You sort of invited some sort of dialogue, because I think that is a key component. Whether you accepted to go there or not is entirely up to you, but you left it on the table, and I think that's really the right thing to do. You can't force someone to like change. Obviously, you felt pretty strongly about it. Hello, Professor. Which one are you talking about?
The third one.
Third. Have you not started the third one?
No, they're doing it.
Okay. But I think that was the observer. Is that you put the invitation out there, it wasn't necessarily accepted, but I think that due diligence is part of good work with people, just on a human level. And again, I agree, I don't think you can force someone. I think it's a bigger discussion though sometimes with families over time. Like, who knows when this was during the school year? Actually, it was September. It's a tough situation. If someone is home, they've had a chance to know how you're working with their kids, and if worlds are related relationship versus just these quick conversations about this is what I don't like. So, by March, often you can make inroads with things that seem culturally possible. And maybe it means that you don't change, but there's a better understanding, and perhaps it's better if the student then has to voice this too.
Or maybe you could start, you can put them into larger groups in March, like 2 and 2. And then see if that works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. No, and I think that with the like somebody, when you talk to somebody that's like very curse or whatever the word is,
And you were.
Not being afraid by that, because I kind of was afraid, but like I always have like awkward conversations with like residents, and they're like mad, so they act just like you did, and having to like still hold my ground to a certain extent, without being like offensive, but still, being strong in what I believe.
It's tough to because one of the assignments that I have in my chemistry lab. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to show the kids in my class that not only boys can go into science, but also girls. And I thought that, by pairing them up, they can see how one another work and how they can complement each other and actually help each other out. And your daughter is actually a great role model. I completely understand that you have some issues about this, but I'm just wondering if there's any possibility that we can work through this, because I really think that your daughter has made a very good impact on one of the students in your classroom.
So thank you for all that. I'm so happy that she's good at and she's a role model, because that's very important. And I love your idea of having women involved in science, but I still feel very strongly that she shouldn't be partnered with a male. Would it be possible for her to do like class presentations of some sort? If you want to show how good she is in science, if she could just, I'm happy for her to give presentations or to show how good she is, but for religious reasons, I really strongly feel at this moment we need to see their traditional values, and I would like her to work with female students.
Okay, so I understand where you're coming from. The way my chemistry lab works is that I really want the kids to interact with one another, so we need to always have kids in partners or in groups. So I understand that you want your daughter to be working with a female partner, but could we make a compromise, and maybe when we have group work, would it be okay with you if we have a mix, both female and male students together?
You're playing the role.
I don't know my beliefs. That would be, as long as that there are other girls for her to interact with, it's very important for us that it's not just the one of them I've decided.
Executive decision.
So yeah, I think that would work fine for us and my daughter.
I really appreciate you coming in and voicing your concerns. Do you have anything else you want to talk about? Is there anything else in the classroom that has been worrying you?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your kind words about my daughter.
You
guys did
right hand.
You guys did amazing. Oh my god, okay.
We're sorry. Okay, so did you really
No, so I'm in
Oh,
I was wondering if you could
where am I? I see my hands, I know the link. But you didn't know, like it would almost be more awkward if like I said no, and then she's
When
like,
I start getting us into a we're all set? Cool. Oh, fair enough. Thanks.
and I think
that was so good.
And you often
For her to make her child. For you, I also know.
We're going to start getting into a large discussion.
Yeah.
We're going to have a large group debrief. Let me bring your attention round to our semicircle.
Yeah. It's the simple things.
What are your reactions to this approach to maintaining a good working relationship with someone when the emotions are high? And by the way, I apologize for not having the evolution article on the back of that page, but thank you for your creativity in coming up with an article on evolution. Good talk. What are your reactions to this reflective listening skill set? How easy was it? How hard was it? How did it work?
I think it was definitely the first time around. I think we had a little bit of a difficulty just kind of trying to figure out our roles and how like the dynamic should work. But by the second and third round, we all kind of understood how this whole role playing thing worked out. And what I got from it is that to have like a very good relationship is that you always have to be quick, and you have to also be very conscious of what is going on with either the speaker, and you also have to be able to make compromises, I think.
Gotcha.
For me, one thing I had difficulty with was not bringing my own personal beliefs into the discussion, especially because like you can't really tell about religion in classrooms, and you don't want students to feel like you're like prophetizing or trying to convert them to your specific religion. So that was something I had difficulty with, but it worked out in there.
I think as teachers, like we don't want to be wrong. Like we believe that what we do or are doing now, it's right, and we want to stick with that. And it's just hard to point it out, be like, hey, your lesson is actually not right, or like, hey, don't put my daughter with the boy. And so, and that's, guys, I guess that's really hard.
Any reactions to I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name.
Annie.
Annie, to Annie's comment that it's difficult to be told as a teacher that your lesson is not right.
I mean, it's always, like, in any profession, it's never fun to be told that you did something wrong. And I think, like, especially in the teaching profession, it's really interesting because there's a lot of asymmetries of power because, like, you're working with children most of the time, and then there's an adult, but you have control over their children. But I thought that at least she did a really good job during our discussion of, like, accepting that there was no way she could have known why I would think she's wrong. So it's like almost really wasn't her fault. And I think that also helped. And instead of getting mad at me, she just complimented my kid, which just made it so much better.
Which really worked, by the way. Totally diffused.
I called my daughter a genius.
I also think that like if you took the time out to plan like this lesson plan, then I wouldn't say that it's wrong because the child is telling you like this is wrong because this is not what I believe in. But I think if you're planning this, you have to pay attention to what you're trying to teach and what's the message, and be aware that there's going to be students and parents as well who don't believe it. So you have to try to generalize, but be very sensitive to everyone else's points of views.
I mentioned this to my group a lot, but I'm an RA, so we do a lot of reflective listening exercises literally for like a whole week. But the difference with this and what made it hard was, as an RA, when I'm trying to understand people's perspective, I always know kind of in the end that I have to win the discussion just because I have the policy under my belt that I can be like, this is the policy though, so like kind of know I'm always right. But at least the college is right. But with this, it's a lot more subjective, so it's harder to kind of back myself up. So I found that to be challenging.
There were other hands up, and I didn't mean to cut anybody off, but the idea of a teacher being wrong was an interesting one. The word diffused came up at least two of the tables. Any comments on the diffusing of an emotionally charged situation? How that happened? One, your daughter is just superb. So what? And then I was
going to say, just removing that feeling that it's a personal issue, taking you out of it is always difficult to do because it feels really personal, and getting over that feeling and dealing with it more in almost a clinical sense of what is the issue versus how I'm feeling.
Something I didn't do well at all, but we talked a little bit afterwards and realized was that I think with first thing you should try to do is kind of neutralize emotions so that you can make a compromise or actually talk about solutions. And until then, it's hard because all your rationale is clouded.
I didn't do this either, but I think that something might have been helpful is if I was the teacher for the chemistry lab thing, and maybe if I had been like, I totally understand that, like, you know, my parents didn't want me to, whatever, do something, you know, like bring up something personal that made me understand their perspective, or showed that I could understand their perspective.
So there was some detail so that...
I mean, I didn't do this, but after the fact I thought about it.
But
yeah, or I could have been like, you know, my parents didn't let me go to school dances because they didn't want me to go because there were boys there or something like that.
so there's common ground, so
Yeah.
to speak, there that the speaker, in this case, parent or the child, would understand, oh, okay, so you've been there, figuratively speaking, you understand what I'm talking about, so now there's more of this identity, and I'm stealing a word out of Maria's most recent article here, with there's that identity match. We understand each other, so we can keep talking.
I also think that one of the goals as like a reflective listener is to also show that you are actually listening to what they're saying, and you kind of reiterate, and you also show that you are there to support them. So in terms of this chemistry lab, what I did was I you know, acknowledged the parents' concerns, and I also kind of went back and said, you know, are there any other concerns that you may have? You know, is there any other way I can make your daughter or you feel more comfortable in this chemistry lab? So.
Well, also something that I should have done, which I didn't, was I was the teacher for the fracking, and so she came in, and we weren't even completely on the same page as to what has happened, and like I feel like because she had heard about this from her son, so I felt like what would have been smart was to say just what had happened, not
What did your son tell you?
Yeah, like, what did your son tell you? Like, this was the activity. Not saying your son lied, not saying your son, but like, just this is what happened, because she didn't really know what was happening.
Interesting.
And like, I didn't really know what she knew, so like, I made assumptions about what she knew that we could have gotten to a point where we understood each other so much faster if I had just been like, here's the lesson.
Interesting. To figure out specifically what she actually understood about it.
Yeah, like where her problem was, we didn't even really understand what each other's problem was.
Well, and then we had a quick little hydrofracking lesson at the table, just to like get everybody up to speed on what it was and why it might be bad or good or. That was fun.
That the word feel is so critical here, because again, when we're talking about the message has not only the verbal and the nonverbal, but embedded in that dual part message is the cognitive message, but also the emotional message. Okay, flashback time. My wife and I were on a bus. We were up near Rye, New York, and it was in the evening, and there were just 2 seats left on the bus. Into the bus come a mother and young daughter. The daughter is just crying, big time, and just loud, and there are only 2 seats left, and she sits right next to me. So I asked her, I paraphrased the emotions. You must have had a really long day. Oh yes, it was so bad, I can't. And you must have gotten up really early. Oh yeah, the sun wasn't even up yet. Why did you get up so early? Open-ended question. Why did you get up so early? Well, we had to go somewhere. Where did you go? Oh, we went to this place that had rides. You went to a place that had rides? Wow, that must have been fun. And it just went up from there. And by the time they got to their stop, the mother is looking at me as they get off the bus, and she's mouthing, "Thank you." And it was one of those times when I was out of character, because this was still really new to me, but it was another lesson that the stuff works. So yeah, it was. My wife looked at me as though some alien had taken over, which might have been the case, but it was,
Did he actually stop crying?
yes.
This one might be a little controversial, but I've always noticed, at least with like, if I get a really frantic resident email and you being like, I need to talk to you today. This is really important. And even if I have time that day, I will still say like, okay, well I can talk to you in like 2 days. Not like say that, but like, oh, I'm free in 2 days. How's that? Not because I don't want to talk to them, but because like when your emotions are so high, you don't take time to think about things in a more rational way. And I don't know if teachers can really do this, but if you can, I wonder if that's a good strategy because
That would be nice.
So from the parent perspective,
yeah,
not such a good strategy.
yeah.
Because I think what happens is, as a parent, I think, oh, this person is avoiding me. And then I get angry about that as well as whatever I'm angry about. In fact,
By the time she gets there, she's got like boxing gloves.
I do sometimes. This morning I was at a meeting with principal and all the parents from my son's grade. Well, not all, but all that chose to come. And one mother brought up an issue that actually made a lot of parents upset over the summer. There was a big question of whether or not Spanish was going to be offered in our school. And we kind of thought, we kind of knew going into the school year that it was likely to be canceled because we'd heard, a few of us had heard rumors that this was going to happen. And then a few weeks before the school started, a few of us heard definitively, no, it's not happening. But the majority of the parents were not told anything. And then when this communication came later, and it came, I kid you not, the night before school started, we all felt like it was done intentionally, like you're withholding information, you're avoiding the hard conversation. And I think that that can really upset parents. Right. So in some ways, I would say be really cautious in the school setting of just avoiding the conversation and thinking it's going to diffuse. Because if somebody really needs to get something off their chest, and if, for example, it's a situation like the chemistry lab situation, and the mother wants my daughter not to be with the boy, and you let 3 more days go by of chemistry lab, I'm going to be ready to kill you by the time I get in. So there's got to be an acknowledgement of, I hear you, and I want to know, and I want to deal with the issue.
And yet I think if it's students, though, that you're working with in a classroom setting, it's difficult to do that because you have a lot of eyes on the situation, and they are watching how it's handled. And yet you could invite, write me a note, and we'll take it from there. I think that there's a middle ground with students. I think with parents, it is a little bit, especially you.
And you kind of got to know your parents, too. Some parents will go away. Some parents won't.
Some don't.
But actually, the parents who go away, you probably don't want to let them go.
Yeah.
Because they might not come back.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to open up to a wider discussion? You had mentioned.
It's almost 9.
It's almost 9, yeah.
And so we've actually used even our discussion period.
I'm sorry.
We kept our camera person here over time too.
I think this, I just want to say that I really think that what you shared with us tonight was so valuable when we think about teaching and interactions in general, but especially when we're talking about teaching. And while we've run out of time, we don't really have time to go there now, the question I would have posed to the whole group is specifically, where does this fit in the STEM classroom? And the examples we had were STEM examples for these last role plays, but I think we can think about this more so even where else in the STEM classroom do we see using this reflective listening technique. And as you all go off to write on your reflections, I would encourage you to think about that piece. Where does this fit with STEM education specifically? Because I could see not necessarily automatically going there. as a chemistry teacher. And that chemistry scenario actually was really challenging for the group I was sitting with. But I think we can really push ourselves to think about that, especially those of you who really are moving towards teacher certification and being in classrooms. And also thinking about, you know, if you become a parent someday or whatever you end up doing. I have a sign-in sheet, and I'm going to pass it around, and I'm going to ask that people please sign it before leaving. It should take everybody a few minutes to clean up as it is.
And I'm going to ask that in the packet there is a green sheet that is an assessment sheet. If you would please anonymously fill it out, and when you're done, if you just leave it on the corner of the table here, and I'll step outside so that I'm not here as you fill that out. And thank you.
Thank you.